What's going on, guys? Andrew Piluk Hockey here, back again with another video, and it's time to ramp up for the Toronto Maple Leafs trade deadline, and obviously the NHL trade deadline. But being a Leaf channel, that's usually what I talk about. And if you guys have followed this channel for years, and even if you haven't, I always have been the guy that made Toronto Maple Leaf trade rumor videos. A lot of people didn't like it in the past because nobody was really doing it. But I've been doing it for years now, and if you like this kind of thing, there's going to be tons of content. I know I always say, oh, there's tons of content coming. No, but this is my bread and butter. This is what I do. So like and subscribe. Join the squad. I'd love to have you here. We are going to be talking Leafs trade rumors from now until the end of the season, because we're going to have to talk about what happens after the trade deadline as well. So like I said, this is my bread and butter. This is what I do, and it's going to be a lot of fun. But the Leafs have been playing well. We've had a few bad games here and there, and also, before I get any further, I'm getting a little bit off track, but I did the Easter Seals charity skate with the Maple Leafs. I will have a video on that coming very soon. Shout out to Steven. I met you at the event. Thank you so much for coming up to me and saying what's up. I really appreciate you. Thank you so much for the support. Thank you for watching. You're my friend for life now. So thank you so much again. But yeah, I want to talk about the trade deadline. I want to talk what they're going to be doing, but they have been playing well. Besides a few games, the Leafs haven't the Leafs haven't really fallen off the path that they're going. The only thing that kind of sucks is we've got an Austin Matthews injury. He's going to be out for a little while, but he's only going to be missing like 6 or 7 games because the All-Star break is going to take away a little bit of time for his recovery. So that's good. So he's not going to be missing too much time, and some of the games he's missing is against opponents that the Leafs should beat. But again, we all know that the Leafs don't have the greatest record against some of these guys. But let's look into their salary cap situation. I did put Matthews back in the lineup because, you know, come the deadline, Matthews is going to be in the lineup. So I want to show kind of roughly what their cap situation is going to look like. So as you can see, Muzzin, Robertson, and Victor Mete are on LTIR. That reflects, you know, the cap space that they have. Their scratches, Wayne Simmons, Jordy Ben, Connor Timmins, these are guys that are more than likely going to be out of the lineup because the Leafs have Riley and Liljegren, Brody, Hall, Sandy, and Giordano. I'm not saying these are, you know, the locked-in D pairings, but these are the guys that you have. And then goaltending, Matt Murray, but Samsonov is pretty much been the starter for now. And then, you know, the lines are, you know, they mix up a little bit, but these are the forwards that they've been going with more often than not. Joey Anderson. And then in the minors, we also have Bobby McMahon, but, you know, he's going to be in and out of the lineup as well. I think they want to go with Holmberg and Anderson because they've been hot right now. But regardless, you can fit in those guys, move them around however you want. But that's kind of the situation. That's the lineup. That's the money that they have, roughly $2 million in cap space. But again, we know how the deadline works. There's all different ways and loopholes and stuff like that. So we'll get to that as we get closer. But the big question coming up to this deadline is, do the Leafs go out and acquire a big-name player? Now, we've seen the Islanders go out, a team that's not necessarily a playoff locked-in team. They went out there and got Bo Horvat, and the price was a pretty good prospect, you know, a protected first as well, and Beauvillier. So it's like you're getting a decent package, but a lot of people are like, oh, the Leafs could have matched that. They have better options. They do. I honestly do think that they could have probably done a little bit better. But at the same time, the Islanders gave away who would be their future. Like, the prospect, I always forget his name. I think it's like Ratty or Ratu. Again, no disrespect, but I do know that he's very talented. I know that he's probably their future, and he's gone now. If you lock up Horvat, it looks a lot better. But that trade was kind of significant because now it doesn't necessarily set the market, but at least shows what the going rate will be for a star player, right? So the next guys up are like Timo Meier, and, you know, there's other big names out there like a Carlson on the blue line, which I'm not sure if he's going to get dealt. You know, maybe a Bertuzzi, a Larkin potentially in Detroit. I doubt it, but who knows? There's a lot of different players that could get moved. And are the Leafs set up to go and get one of those guys? Well, with Horvat off the books now, Meier is being looked at by a lot of teams, the New Jersey Devils, and, you know, basically any team that's gunning for it. The Boston Bruins must be in on him after missing out on Horvat. Horvat seemed like a Boston Bruins style of player. But the Leafs don't have a ton of money to work with. So now what people are starting to think is, are the Leafs going to go after a cheaper option to fill out this roster, or are they going to shed money to bring in money? Where do you move from this blue line? We're going to look into that a little bit with a couple of the latest rumors that have been out there. And the first one comes from Luke Fox on Sportsnet, saying that he is wondering if Jake McCabe is a name that's out there. Now, Frank Saravelli highlighted that the Blackhawks defenseman is an intriguing name for the Maple Leafs. The asking price could be a second-round pick and a B-level prospect if acquired at his full $4 million average annual value. More to convince the Blackhawks to eat salary, of course, because that's a lot of money. But McCabe is actually playing pretty well. The Blackhawks aren't a very good team. He's a plus player right now, and he plays a similar style to TJ Brodie. Maybe not as good, but he plays that similar style. And that's got to be music to anybody's ears. But my question is okay, first of all, how do the Leafs make that trade happen, and what do they give up? Because you're not going to be taking on the full $4 million. The Leafs can't afford to take on this full $4 million, and it just would make the price go up a little bit more. And I'm wondering if that includes a first-round pick. Now, if we're just looking at his numbers, specifically points, 14 points in 45 games played, but he's a +2 on a really bad team. But what I want to show you is his time on ice, and that's something that I'm going to be bringing up a little bit with another guy that we're going to be talking about. His average ice time right now is just under 20 minutes, and I believe you can see his last 5 games on here. Yes, so his last 5 minutes, he's been averaging, 20, just under 20 minutes. So he's playing a lot of time. So this makes me go back to this here and look at the Leafs' top 6. Are you getting rid of Riley out of your lineup? No. Are you getting rid of Liljegren? God, no. He's been their best defenseman recently. Are you getting rid of TJ Brodie? No, because he's solid as a rock. Justin Hall? Possibly. But he eats a lot of minutes, plays in the penalty kill. Are you getting rid of Sandin? I don't know. Are you taking him out of the lineup? I'm not sure. Are you taking Gio out? No, because Gio's been pretty solid besides him taking a lot of penalties. So you have to fit in a guy that plays top 4 minutes essentially and put him in somewhere. Sure, that's golden for the Leafs to have another guy that can be excellent on the penalty kill while also, probably playing on your bottom pairing for most of the time and giving you a top 4 caliber defenseman. Does Justin Hall become a part of this trade, or do they keep him because they're worried about maybe there's an injury and they need another penalty killer on that blue line? So there's a lot of things to think about, Pierre, but I want to go to the next name that I'm going to talk about, and then we'll come back around to McCabe as well as this guy, and I'll give you a full big picture of what I'm talking about here. Luke Schenn, I've brought him up many times, but this cap hit is beautiful, and the Toronto Maple Leafs should be all over this. They wouldn't really need salary retention, but it would probably help a lot if they could somehow get a little bit of salary retention, because then they're just obviously saving more money. But of course, with salary retention, the price goes up. Now with Luke Schenn, I'm not necessarily focused on his points, but he's actually done pretty well. I know he's been playing with Hughes a little bit, but 16 points in 49 games played, and as well a +7. And he's a former Stanley Cup champion, multiple Stanley Cup champion. So, and he's also played for the Leafs at one point. He was a highly touted prospect, and we kind of seen how that ended up. He didn't actually play up to his standards, and he's changed his game since then. But I still am a big fan. But his points aren't really what I'm looking at with Luke Schenn, and it's not also just his cap hit at $850K. If you look at hit leaders, I love this site. StatMuse, the site, NHL hit leaders. He is currently number 1 in the entire NHL in hits. Now, one thing I want to bring up with Luke Schenn, and hits look great. I have a good and a bad for this. Luke Schenn sometimes will get caught only looking for a hit, and it takes him out of the play. If Luke Schenn is playing limited minutes with the Maple Leafs and is got a partner that could potentially back him up, like a Gio or a Sandin or a Liljegren or something like that, that is going to save him on the defensive end a little bit more. Let him hit away. Let him do his thing. Let him block shots. Let him go on the penalty kill, whatever he's got to do. Let him just crank people in the corner. But that's the only downside to him, is that he'll sometimes lose himself in the play because he's going for just strictly crushing guys, which is definitely okay, but not necessarily taking yourself out of the play. In terms of his time on ice, he's playing over 17 minutes. He's found himself with Hughes quite a bit. You know, he can play up in the 20-minute mark. He can play 13 minutes. He can play average ice times of 15 to 16 minutes. So again, this is a guy that fits in, but where does he fit in? Do you just go out and get a McCabe because he's a little bit more polished in all areas besides just being a physical guy? Or do you go after a guy that's extremely physical that can give you bottom pairing minutes and play pretty solid? It's honestly, you're not going to go wrong either way, but it just depends on who you're pushing out of the lineup. And it could get really interesting because the Leafs could be looking at trading Justin Holl as a part of this deal, because you have Ben as a depth defenseman. You have Connor Timmins as a depth defenseman. And if you already have Gio and TJ Brody and Liljegren and Sandin and all these guys that kill penalties, you're not necessarily going to be losing Justin Holl and worrying about losing him, because you're also going to bring in, especially with a Jake McCabe, a guy that can kill penalties probably more effectively than Justin Holl does. So are you just upgrading? I'm okay with that. Do you upgrade at the position? No problem. It just depends on what the cost is. You're going to have to get salary retention for Jake McCabe. With Schenn, you might be able to actually save some money if you end up, trading Holl in a different deal. But Justin Holl also has a modified no trade clause. So there's a lot of different intricate pieces here, but I want to kick it back over to you guys. What do you think? Should the Leafs upgrade on Justin Holl? Should they make a move, trade him, acquire a different defenseman in a separate trade or in the same trade? I think that McCabe and Schenn are both guys that can be an upgrade in terms of what they do. I don't know if I would trade Justin Holl just to acquire Luke Schenn, as crazy as that sounds, because I do like some parts of Holl's game. But I would like to add that physicality of Luke Schenn. Ideally, you just keep both. That's still potentially what you can do. You need lots of defensemen for the playoffs. Or do you really go in and upgrade with a guy like Jake McCabe, who has experience, who kills a lot of penalties, who can give you top 4 minutes, who plays a similar game to TJ Brody, who can play left and right on the blue line? Let me know. It's a lot of information to take in. If you're new here, like this video, subscribe. Lots more is coming. Trust me, I've got lots planned. This is my bread and butter. I love the trade rumor stuff. You can see that on the channel already. So I love you guys. Thank you for watching. Jake McCabe, Luke Schenn, or somebody else. Leave your video suggestions down below. I'm going to be talking about all of the guys that the Leafs could trade for. So I'll see you guys in the next video or stream. Peace.